The kind of movie I love to watch in theaters. Taylor Sheridan's script for his action thriller sequel is what got its director on board. I'm shocked to learn that the director of Sicario, Day of the Soldado, wasn't intimidated at all when he signed on to direct the sequel, since the first movie is so highly acclaimed. The first Sicario movie was directed by Denis Villeneuve, who has been regarded as one of the best directors of this century. Upon its release, reviews for Sicario were incredible. In addition to its 92% on Rotten Tomatoes via Rotten Tomatoes, Screen Rant also gave Sicario an amazing score of 9 out of 10. In addition to Sicario's critical success, it was also profitable at the box office. The movie's $84 million box office haul led to a sequel being greenlit. Just like the first film, Sicario, Day of the Soldado was also written by Taylor Sheridan, who has become immensely popular for writing shows such as Yellowstone, Mayor of Kingstown, and Tulsa King. However, Villeneuve did not return to direct the sequel to his 2015 film. Instead, Stefano Sollima signed on to direct Sicario, Day of the Soldado. Despite the first film's great reviews, Sollima wasn't intimidated when directing the second Sicario movie. While it would have been understandable for Sollima to be worried that Sicario, Day of the Soldado wouldn't be received as well as the first film, the director has claimed that he was always confident in the project because of Sheridan's script. Before receiving immense acclaim for Yellowstone and its spin-offs, Sheridan wrote several critically acclaimed movies. Therefore, in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 2018, Sollima claimed that he never doubted his decision to direct Sicario, Day of the Soldado, because he loved Sheridan's script. He said, Sollima's comments prove how strong Sheridan's script for Sicario, Day of the Soldado was. Over the years, Villeneuve has also claimed that Sheridan is one of the best screenwriters he's ever worked with. In addition to both Sicario films, Sheridan also wrote critically acclaimed movies like Hell or High Water and Wind River. Therefore, even though making a sequel to Sicario was risky, Sollima never believed he had any reason to be worried about the project since Sheridan was such an effective writer. Even though Sollima thought Sheridan's script for the sequel was amazing, reviews for Sicario, Day of the Soldado were disappointing. Screen Rant gave the movie a 5 out of 10, and its score of 62% on Rotten Tomatoes is significantly lower than the first film via Rotten Tomatoes. Based on his above comments, Sollima chose a new crew for the sequel, which isn't surprising since Sicario, Day of the Soldado feels like a much different movie from the first film. Whereas the first movie was mostly told from Kate Macer's perspective, who is played by Emily Blunt, Sicario, Day of the Soldado does not feature her, and instead follows Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin's characters, who were very mysterious in the first film. Sicario, Day of the Soldado, which sees del Toro's Alejandro kidnap the daughter of a drug cartel leader, is still an entertaining movie, but it is not nearly as good as the first film. Overall, it has a different tone and is more of an action film, rather than a thriller. Even though Sicario, Day of the Soldado wasn't as successful as the first film, Sicario 3 has been confirmed to be in development. However, the third film in the series has unfortunately been stuck in development hell for years. In 2024, Blunt expressed doubt that Sicario 3 will ever be made, while Brolin claimed that he believes the producers are still working on it. Last year, Villeneuve also discussed whether he would return to direct Sicario 3, suggesting that he potentially could be interested if Sheridan is writing the movie. Villeneuve said, "While it is unlikely, it would be amazing if Villeneuve and Sheridan teamed up again for Sicario 3. As for Sollima, he told Variety in 2018 that he was not interested in directing Sicario 3. He argued that every Sicario film should be standalone and should come from a different director. Therefore, Salima will definitely not return, and I wouldn't hold my breath for Villeneuve to return to the franchise either. Therefore, 7 years after the release of Sicario, Day of the Soldado, there is currently no director attached to Sicario 3. There's something about watching a Taylor Sheridan-penned action thriller on the big screen that just hits different. The tension, the grit, the morally complex characters. It all translates into an immersive, edge-of-your-seat experience that demands to be seen in a dark theater with surround sound amplifying every gunshot, every hushed conversation, and every footstep in the dead of night. That's why, when I heard that a sequel to one of his most gripping thrillers was in the works, I knew it was the kind of movie I'd love to experience in theaters. And as it turns out, I'm not the only one who feels that way. The film's director, initially hesitant about taking on the project, was ultimately won over by one thing: Sheridan's script. Sheridan has a knack for crafting tension that grips you like a vice and doesn't let go. His scripts are lean yet layered, filled with characters who live in shades of gray, navigating moral dilemmas that feel all too real. His dialogue is sharp and purposeful, never a wasted word, and his action sequences are visceral without being excessive. This combination is what makes his films so compelling, and ultimately, why the director of this sequel couldn't say no. I wasn't sure at first, the director admitted in an interview. I loved the original film, but I wasn't convinced a sequel was necessary. Then I read Taylor's script, and it was just undeniable. It wasn't just another sequel, it was a story that needed to be told. That's what sets Sheridan apart from so many other screenwriters in Hollywood. He doesn't write sequels for the sake of cashing in on a franchise. He writes stories that evolve naturally, that expand upon the themes and conflicts established in the original without feeling forced or redundant. And in this case, the director saw something in the script that resonated deeply. The original film was a masterclass in tension and brutal realism, centering on a protagonist caught in a web of corruption and violence. The sequel, as described by those involved, takes that foundation and raises the stakes even higher. Sheridan's signature blend of high-octane action and character-driven storytelling is on full display, making it the perfect kind of movie for a theatrical experience. What's most intriguing is how the sequel doesn't just follow the same formula as its predecessor. Instead, it expands the world, introduces new players, and deepens the moral quandaries that made the first film so compelling. It's not about topping the action for the sake of spectacle, the director explained. It's about continuing the journey in a way that feels real, raw, and honest. And let's talk about the action. Sheridan doesn't do mindless explosions or choreographed fights that feel too clean, too rehearsed. His action sequences feel dangerous. They have weight, consequences. The sequel, from what early reports suggest, leans heavily into that philosophy. The violence is swift and shocking, never glamorized, always serving the story rather than the other way around. That's precisely why this is the kind of movie that demands a theater viewing. There's an undeniable power in watching a story unfold on a massive screen, with an audience reacting in real time. The gasps, the held breaths, the collective tension. It's an experience you simply can't replicate at home. Streaming has its place, but some movies are meant to be felt in the depths of a darkened theater, surrounded by sound and shadow. Taylor Sheridan understands this better than most. He writes movies that don't just entertain, but immerse. His stories aren't about spectacle for spectacle's sake. They're about putting you in the moment, making you feel every decision, every consequence. And when a director as discerning as this one reads his script and immediately knows they have to be part of it, you know you're in for something special. There's a reason Sheridan's work has become synonymous with modern American thrillers that don't pull punches. His films feel real because they are grounded in hard truths about power, about violence, about the thin lines separating justice and vengeance. His characters don't fit into neat hero or villain categories. They are flawed, desperate, sometimes ruthless. And that's what makes his movies so compelling.